Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, our director discussion show here on the Nerd Party Network. Today, we're entering the House of Miller as we explore the Mad Max franchise, beginning with 1979's Mad Max. I'm Darren Moser, and I'm joined again by my friends, motorcycle gang leader Tristan Toenail Cutter Riddell and MFP officer John Goose Mills. Gentlemen, we're going to start this ride as we discuss Mad Max. Now, starting off, is this everyone's first time watching, second time, always watched a million times?
I've seen it a number of times. Initially, okay. Initially I was reacting to the fact that I was like, of the three of us, I'm the toe cutter. But then you made me Goose, and I'm like, I kind of like Goose, so that's fine. Yeah, I've seen Mad Max a few times in my life, and I can. Much like any other child of the 1980s, I saw Road Warrior, and I saw Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And then somebody said, well, there are sequels to Mad Max. I said, they're what now?
To who?
And they said they're sequels to Mad Max. And I wind up seeing Mad Max then. I want to say it was on TV. Maybe my brother rented it on video or something like that. And it was a wildly traumatic experience. There is a scene, and we'll get to the discussion of the film, but there is a scene in this movie that stuck with me that just absolutely, it's one of the worst viewing experiences of my younger self. That is in this film, and I remembered virtually nothing else from it. And then many years later, I watched it because, of course, everybody is obligated to love Mad Max in some way.
Are they?
I think that's like a law somewhere. Yeah.
What about you, Tristan? Has this a new time, or if you've seen it before, has it been a while?
Well, I kind of like what John was saying is that like I saw the Road Warrior and I saw Thunderdome at a really young age. But then one time Mad Max was on TV, and it was the very beginning. It was the very beginning of the film. And my dad was watching it on TV. And I just kind of walk in, and I was like, hey, what are you watching? And he's like, oh, I'm watching Mad Max. And I'm like, this isn't Mad Max. I was like, that's not Mad Max. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, no, this is the first one. Like this is before Road Warrior and Thunderdome. And I'm like, but it's just Australia. It's just
there's Australia.
Cops, there's businesses. It's just Australia. He's like, yeah, this is before everything went down. And I refused to believe him. And then so I sat down and watched the opening scene, but that's all I had seen. So that's the only that's it. Like,
so watching for Max this was your first watch through.
This was my first watch all the way through because I only saw the first opening chase. And then in preparation for this podcast, I saw the rest for the very first time. But I have seen the other ones. Now, I don't remember much from Road Warrior because it was so long ago. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about that next week just because I barely remember anything. But no, this is my first viewing.
Well, I'm getting the sense that for a lot of people, Mad Max is kind of one of those like Mandela effects of like, does it exist? Was there a movie before the Road Warrior? So for me, I think we all had a very similar experience where we saw the Road Warrior first, and then by chance came across, there's not even a prequel. It's not a prequel. It's the first one of the franchise that everybody glosses over because literally, Mad Max really start at the 90th percent marker when he puts on the black leather and gets the police special? Because that's kind of when I feel like the Mad Max, quote unquote, part of the movie actually starts, and it's near the finish line.
It's like the end of Casino Royale.
It kind of is.
I think you have a great point there, a very fair point there, Darren, that I think that when people think of Mad Max, they think of the ending.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of compartmentalizes, and they don't think about everything that led up to the ending. Because I would argue that if they thought of everything that led up to the ending, the perception of this film would be wildly different than what it seems to be. I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and tear the lid off here, and I will say that this movie, I think, comes along at just the right point and is just enough of an underground sort of midnight movie success that has really well staged stunts
and no injuries.
And I think
read.
that's
like they was amazing.
Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah, it really is. When you consider the fact that there are higher budget films with smaller scale stunts where things go horribly wrong, and you see some of the stuff that happens here, including that one shot where the motorcycle hits the guy in the back of the head while he's screaming across the pavement.
And you're like,
totally.
You're like, that's not staged. That's actually hit by a motorcycle.
That's just physics getting involved right there. And so I think I think that this is one of those things where it comes along and it's such a spectacle and such an unexpected one. It's truly in the truest sense a grindhouse type of movie where you go and you see it and you're maybe a little bit drunk and you have a good time watching it. But I really think if you miss that first wave, you're never going to plug into it the way that first audience did.
Before we were recording, you guys were talking about, I think, John, you were mentioning, I can't remember who, but someone was mentioning that they went to a showing of all the Indiana Jones movies, and like 99% of the people walked out before the fourth one started. If there was a Mad Max-a-thon, do you think that 90% of the people coming would show up late and be like, we'll get there as long as we're there by 8:45 when number 2 starts, we're good.
Yes, I completely do. And I think that for those of you who don't recall Road Warrior, when you see it, you will say, oh, wow, this just reinforces the idea that I don't need to watch the first one. I'm not giving away too much there. Trust me. And it is, I think, a movie that you can look at fondly, but I think what we'll discover as we're talking about it in depth is that it's one where you have to be excessively forgiving to get to the point where you call it
dystopian.
Anything good. I mean, I was trying to save that punch for the end. It's a very, I think the thing that winds up powering the movie and keeps you engaged even if you don't care for it is the fact that, like the exploitation genre, where you have Shaft or Cleopatra Jones, stuff like that, because I'm a huge fan of that genre. What keeps you watching, even when those movies aren't particularly what you would call good, is there's this very obvious energy behind and in front of the camera of people who are like kids who just, they're so excited that they get to make a movie. They're going to give it their best shot. So even if it doesn't gel, you're still very forgiving of it. And that sort of goodwill extends forward into later movies like The Room or Neil Breen's movies entirely, where you look at it and you say, if this were a $100 million director coming in and delivering this to me, I would be so harsh with this. But since it isn't, I take that meta knowledge and I'm a little bit easier going with it.
Yeah, as far as budget, this movie was made for around 400,000 Australian dollars in 1979. It made 100 million USD, which is crazy return. I think it was the Guinness Book winner of the highest box office to budget ratio until the Blair Witch Project in 1999.
Wow.
So that's,
yes.
I knew it was successful, but I didn't realize how successful, because as I was watching, you know what? I know that we love to play coy for the entire episode.
That's all right.
And be professional.
You know what? It's a fall of society. We could do whatever we want in whatever order.
That's right. The rules are suspended here.
I wanted to start this episode like when you introduced me to say, like, here are my 10 reasons why I friggin' hate this movie. So after I finished the movie, and I texted John expletives about it.
Many expletives.
Yes. Yeah.
The same one repeatedly.
Give us your play-by-play, because like you said, Tristan, this was your first time having to experience this entire movie. So I'm sensing lots of F-bombs. Okay.
Okay, so I'll spread it out throughout the show, but when I finished it, I was like, how on earth did this get a sequel? and how did this spawn a franchise? Let alone a sequel that came out not that long afterwards. And then I looked up its return, and I'm like, well, freaking duh! Yeah, I would have gotten a sequel if it made that kind of return.
It's a money machine.
That would have.
It just
I'm surprised. Fury Road didn't happen right after Thunderdome. Even if Thunderdome didn't make that much money, you'd think with that much return, they're like, we're gonna milk this until it's completely dead, until they're begging us to stop making them. But as I was watching this, I kept thinking, I actually paused the movie halfway through and Googled to see if this was an Australian TV movie. Because I thought it was that poorly done. And it was edited there was commercial breaks in it. And so I thought it was so poorly shot, so poorly done, and such low budget that I was like, okay, this had to have been a TV movie. This had to have been a foreign TV movie. And I looked it up. I'm like, nope. This was theatrical distribution right off the bat. This is not a poorly done TV movie with commercial breaks and some of the worst score that I've ever heard. And so, yeah.
Well, funny, because you talked about how poorly shot you found it to be. The director of photography on this did come back into the limelight ever so briefly and ever so tangentially by being the second unit thermal camera on Predator, directed by John McTiernan. So the stuff where you see the thermal imaging, everything, that was this DP at work. And I would say that he found something that was very well suited to his strengths with that. Because look, this is a first film for a lot of people. This is something that is, it's endearing depending on when you see it, that sort of thing. So I'm not going to drag the guy. Obviously, I'm going for the joke there. He did have actually a rather good career. He wound up being DP on what I think was a delightful little low budget film that kind of really is responsible for Vin Diesel coming into the limelight, Pitch Black. And I'm like, that's actually a pretty clever movie and pretty well shot. So
there's actually a lot of color for that movie.
People learn over time.
But yes.
Yeah. Well, yes,
and I'm glad,
point.
John, I'm glad that you emphasize that because, even if we're criticizing somebody's work, I mean, that's what podcasting is when it comes to movie reviews. You're critiquing work, positive, negative, neutral. But we're not going to drag a guy's entire career because we don't like his work on this particular film. Mel Gibson, he was so unknown. He was still in drama school when he did this movie, and he was paid $10,000. And I think some of the motorcycles were more expensive than his salary.
But was he paid $10,000 or $10,000 dues? Because it was Australian budget. So.
That's not what
the Australian
called.
If anybody does want to see a terrific action film that's a low budget grindhouse, so bad it's good sort of movie that was shot by this DP, then rent Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man from 1991. Which is super low budget and endearing, and it's Mickey Rourke and Don Johnson.
I hear that title, and I'd be really disappointed if it's not the giant signs in Las Vegas coming to life and having an adventure. That's what I want to see when I think of Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. But
I'll tell you what, it's a delightful little low budget thing, which Mad Max isn't. But what's interesting as well, as you mentioned the editing, Tristan, I agree with you. This thing's a mess.
Absolute mess.
But I want to, I want to toss it back, Darren or Tristan. Do you see anything here where you see a director and this is a mess, but you're like, okay, give him time. These people can figure out what they're doing. Is there any sort of flash of good that you see in it?
I really don't. I
mean, I will say,
Darren, you go ahead.
I'll say everything with Max is really is passable. The way they introduce him, you can instantly tell, okay, this guy is the lead. This is the main guy. He doesn't say very much in the beginning. He's kind of waiting for the car to get there, and then again, once he goes full road warrior, I think there's just a lot of characters. There's a lot of people in this movie. There's a lot of things to track and to follow. And They really like these bug out eye shots. Like there's like 2 of them in this movie.
It was the same shot.
That's Miller's calling card. Yeah,
it was the same
Miller's
shot used twice.
I didn't even notice that.
But aside from that being Miller's calling card, I will actually say the editing, yes, it's a mess. I agree with you, Darren, that there are moments where it's passable. It's good enough. And I think that the stunts are edited together pretty well. I can tell what's going on. My sense of place gets lost a lot, though. Like if there's a chase going on, I'm like, wait, why are they turning around?
That's true.
I thought they were going in the other direction.
There aren't any
sort of thing.
landmarks. There's not like
Yes.
It's not like it all takes place in one town with like a church in the corner or something. And so you always know, they left going west of the church, so they're going that way, or now they're back and then they're going by the junkyard that's east. It's just the Australian countryside. There's a lot of green for the end of the world, but that's maybe neither here nor there.
And on top of that, the motorcyclists weren't distinct enough with their helmets on.
Yeah.
And so there's so many times when you're like, wait, even at the very end, like when he killed, what's his name? By handcuffing him to the
toe cutter.
Was Johnny the boy, right?
Johnny the boy, yeah.
So when he handcuffed Johnny to the car, and then we get no epilogue, we get no denouement, we get no falling action, just credits.
Well, we hear it explode.
I was just like,
we know what happens, but
but still, it's you know what happens, but then there's nothing afterwards. There's no room to breathe. There's no room to reflect. It's just credits. But once we get the credits, I first off was going, that's it. That's a horrible way to end a movie. And then I was thinking, wait, didn't he need to kill Toe Cutter? And I forgot that Toe Cutter was the one that got ran over.
Right. He's the second bug guy
thing. Yeah. And because I was like, wait, who was the one laying down and, playing possum? Right. And then I was so confused as to who was whom. And because they weren't distinct enough.
I think this would have been a great gang if there was like 5. There's like the leader who had the animal skin pelt on, which was a little bit recognizable, and often he didn't have a helmet and you saw his hair. But then you needed like 4 lieutenants that were like really recognizable, and then everybody else is just fodder, motorcycle crew.
I would say that this movie, in a sense, is struggling to be the Western, in the sense that if you took this gang and you made them
put them on horses instead
of a
motorcycles.
Well, no, if you took this gang and you made them the ones dominating a town, like you were talking earlier, Darren, there's no church, there's no junkyard. I can tell where I am in relation to everything. If you take these people and you make them, they're terrorizing a town, and it's like the cops are external to the town, and they go out and they do their sorties and they do their thieving, and that's where the cops encounter them. And then the crescendo is that the cops have to go in and whatever. Obviously, I'm trying to rewrite the movie at this point, but I do think that's what was needed, because I do think that overall the editing is serviceable for the material that's shot. It's not good, but it's serviceable. I think that where we fall down a lot is, where is the exposition about the state of the world?
Yeah.
Where is anything saying that, it's a dystopia? It's not the complete collapse. It's
a societal collapse. Like, it's back to like you were saying, it's like the Wild West, where a gang could roll into town and they'll just start killing people. Like, that doesn't take place nowadays in modern, in civilized society. But
why did we need that? Why did we need this to be post-apocalyptic? It didn't have to be. The only reason why we even know that it's post-apocalyptic, or at least somewhere in the midst of it, is because of sequels.
Yeah.
And because of backstory.
Yes.
Nothing in the film it's all what is it? Pre-contextual,
Yes.
post-contextual knowledge, whatever it's called. Extra.
I almost wish we had a friend who had only seen Mad Max, because it gets so Mad Max, quote unquote, gets so colored. The character gets so colored by all the films after this one that I think it's
Yes.
almost impossible unless you only saw this movie and you had no idea what Road Warrior or Beyond, didn't even know they existed. I don't think you could even define what that experience is because it changes so much. Like we're all looking at this movie through the lens of who he becomes.
Yes. But I think that it is the script that is the baseline biggest problem here, that there is no time taken, nothing written to clue the audience in that it's on the way to post-apocalyptic. The apocalypse is happening during this. This is during the breakdown of law and order. So we're not there yet, but we're on the way. And if we had more of an indication that was, whether it's a conversation of somebody saying, I remember the before time.
I think it would have been great
10 years ago, this
Max
wasn't a
was
problem.
talking with his wife about the kind of future their son will have. Like that could have been a really interesting discussion.
Because they don't seem at all concerned about it, do they?
And you know what? I don't think they are concerned about his immediate future either, because they let him play around with his revolver.
Yeah, that scene was so weird when Max is about to leave for work and there's like a 2-second shot of the son on the ground with the gun. And I'm like, are we going to establish that the gun is not loaded, or is he going to go get the gun? Nope. He just leaves and we don't ever see the gun again. And I'm like, what is going on?
It was just B-roll. Just B-roll.
I'll tell you what's going on there, Darren. Bad parenting. Yeah. That's what's going on. The quality of parenting is going to be very bad. And during the apocalypse.
So my wife watches most of what we watch, like most of what we talk about on this podcast. She watches it with me. But I told her, I was like, I don't think I'm going to have you watch this one. I'm going to watch this one on my own because it's not. I know a little bit about it. It's not Road Warrior. She's like, okay, that's fine, because she loves the post-apocalyptic genre.
And this is not.
She walks in, and this is not that. She walks in and she looked at the screen, and the first thing she sees is the baby, is the toddler holding the gun, and we both just burst out laughing. And she asked the same questions as you, and then it just goes to the next shot, and then he leaves, and she's like, "Wait, they're not going to talk about it? Like we're not going to address that at all."
Yeah, that was, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, maybe that speaks to why you shook your head no when we said, is there anything salvageable about the editing? Because maybe a good editor would have sat there and said, you know, George, I know we're trying to establish that the kid plays with things, but I don't know if this plays very well. I think maybe we can choose something before or after this
They also left the kid
moment.
alone, which is why he gets picked up by the gang. Like, nobody's watching him. You know,
it's so crazy to me. Like, I was actually,
now,
I'm glad you brought that up, Darren.
That could also be just the 70s, and maybe you just didn't want your kid as much in Australia's outback.
No. There is no planet on which you leave like a sub 2-year-old sitting on a blanket. Even if you hear your wife scream, you kind of make sure the kid is taken care of first, and then you go off after the source of trouble.
I'm really glad that you guys brought that up because, as I said before, there's so many times in movies where somebody will go through a traumatic event, or like they'll get chased, or they'll run through the woods or something like that, and they'll stop and catch their breath, and they'll go, "Oh wait, I have a child. I should probably look on them." No parent worth their salt in the world thinks that as an afterthought. Not at all. Like it just doesn't happen.
I will also throw out there that it's another example of another pass at the script. I think that a third writer could come in and look at it and say, "What purpose does the child serve?" You can have everything with just the wife in danger.
I mean,
you don't
it's like
need
they
the
kept
child.
the child because
Cheap.
it's more of a
it is
reason
cheap.
why he goes off the deep end at the end.
But the thing is, it is cheap, and it is very. I have a very big problem with putting children in danger for no purpose in a movie. Okay, Cameron does it right with Aliens. Newt being in danger serves the larger story. It serves character arcs. It serves all of these stories. It serves Newt's character arc. It serves Ripley's character arc.
Daughter,
everything makes sense. In this, there are 2 children put in specific danger for no friggin' reason, and it angers me when this sort of thing happens. I actually get visceral, if you can't tell, I get very animated and I get very viscerally angry. If you put a kid in danger and there's no reason for it, and I can't sit there and say, oh, well, this makes sense. No. Full stop. When that kid walks out in the beginning into the middle of the road and the cars are coming, it's not that I get tense. It's not that I'm like, oh, no, the kid. It's that I sit there and I say, screw you, man. You are trying to appeal to the worst, most base lizard brain level of me and manipulate. Like, that's how I feel about it. I get angry because it's basic, bald manipulation, and I don't appreciate it. It has all of the finesse of a used car salesman, and that doesn't fly with me.
Yeah. I agree. I would agree with you 100%, and I have nothing to add because you hit the nail on the head.
And those scenes,
and to kind of go back on the...
I was just going to say with the other kid, those scenes also were very much like just a slice of life in a town. Like, and nothing felt out of place in this. And
right, they're still doing road work in the apocalypse. I would think people would be like, what's the point of doing road work
in the apocalypse? There's still many things.
Right.
There's diners, there's mechanics, there's... Yeah, it just doesn't make... It's... Oh my gosh! Yeah,
I would argue lawyers would be the first ones to go in the apocalypse. I'm just throwing that out there, guys. I'm not advocating anything.
This was such a policeman's view of lawyers. The oily hair, the big glasses, holding papers. They're short and no muscle tone. I'm like, oh my god. But so to kind of go back to the editing a little bit, like you kind of, I don't want to say harped on me, but you noted that I said that there was no redeeming value to the editing. While I agree with that, with the microcosm of editing, which I like to distinguish, like with micro editing, like new action scenes were fun, but like Darren, you mentioned that geographically all over the place. In the macrocosm of editing, I thought that was worse than with just the 1-2 shot. The macrocosm of editing, like the movie itself and how it was structured, was so chaotic and so schizophrenic and all over the place. I had no idea what type of movie they wanted me to watch, because they would, like Max and his wife and his kid would go through like a hellish ordeal and then go on a picnic. They go through another hellish ordeal and then he would talk about how much he loves her. And then they go through another hellish ordeal and then they'd visit a family member. Like obviously I'm summarizing here, but like it's so back and forth that we spend a lot of time with the bikers for some reason. I'm like, am I supposed to get to know them? Am I supposed to be more scared of them? Why are we spending more time? Because you're not. Yeah, that's the thing. And so it's just, what movie am I watching? And then when we get to the end, again, Darren, you talked about this, and like in the last 10, 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes, not even 15 minutes
at most,
he becomes quote unquote Mad Max and goes out for revenge. That's the movie we needed to see. Don't give me Death Wish in the last 10 minutes. Don't give me your revenge flick in the last 10 minutes. That's a cheat. Like, you're giving me 5 different movies here. Like, you gave me Clockwork Orange, you gave me Bullet, you gave me Death Wish. What is it? What the frick is it?
But see, what's interesting is you're absolutely right. And to turn it on its head, what you need is this movie, and maybe this movie winds up being an unintentional or unrecognized or unacknowledged influence. You need this movie to be the arc of the Punisher. Because what is the arc of the Punisher? His family gets taken out, he survives, and then he goes on the road and says, okay, like he's basically angrier Batman. Instead of a childhood trauma, he loses his family. It's basically as if Thomas Wayne hits the streets to battle criminals instead of Bruce. And it's like, that's the movie you need. That's Mad Max. You're absolutely right. It's the tail end of this. But even on the journey there, the scene in specific that scarred me as a kid, that just I don't know, my empathy chip overloaded or something like that, is the scene where they go chase the guy in the red car with his girlfriend and all of that stuff happens. That scene, I still have enough of an emotional memory of it that it it's chilling me even now thinking about it, because there's a specific difference between a grindhouse movie that shows things that you're supposed to hate, that you're supposed to say, these are bad people, and you can debate whether you cross a line or not. I'm not one to think that there's really a line to cross so long as you do it well. This movie glories in these moments in a disturbing sort of way. I don't think intentionally. I think it is literally the product of a first-time director not understanding that line. He thinks he's relaying that this gang is very dangerous and over the top and does terrible things. And instead, it feels like you're just soaking in this savagery with a slightly sympathetic, it's not sympathetic, but this, you soak in it too long, and it will always unsettle me. Maybe that's intentional, because then when Goose flips out, that makes perfect sense to me. Why Goose wants to just, screw the legal system and I'm going to get this guy myself, sort of thing. But even that doesn't really go anywhere. If it went somewhere where Goose is the first one to go out on the revenge kick, and then he runs, and Max is the one that's like, listen, I get it. We can't do this. I hate them too. We'll get them another time. And then Goose meets his end. And then that's what sets Max in motion. He's like, they killed my partner. I'm going to go take and again, we fall into that trap of how would I rewrite the movie? And I don't want to do that, but I think that there's no way to really make this movie better without rewriting it. Like just a page zero rewrite.
Keep the characters.
Yeah. Change
rework
the
the structure
of the revenge for sure. Like halfway through or something. And last point on the editing or just the story blocking, I don't know how big of a space we're supposed to take up. Like, suppose this gang is on the high road. They're out there. But yet, every single time, like, Max's wife goes out somewhere, they're, like, right there. And I'm like, well, then, are we all in the same town? Are we all, like, not riding the high road? And, like, so when the fact that they interact with her, and it's going to go bad, and she's going to be on their list now. And it's like, well, why were they even anywhere near us? Like, he's now off on his camping trip.
Australia's really small.
Not small.
Most people don't know this, but Australia is very small.
Smaller than New Hampshire, I believe. It's smaller than New Hampshire. Maybe even
You're
Vermont.
thinking of
it's somewhere
Austria,
between those two.
Tristan. Austria, not Australia.
Right.
Which is the one in the ocean? Which is the one in the ocean? Is that okay? Yeah. I see your point. No, look, it's one of those things where it's not fun to harp on something, to sort of like keep beating on it, unless it's Star Trek Insurrection. But like, is there anything positive that? And Tristan, I already know there's a no coming from you on this one, but Darren, like, what's positive here?
I mean, I could think of some positive things in the broad strokes. There was never a night. Well, no, but I'm thinking like, there was never
I just love
night
that
shot that I couldn't tell what was going on. That was so dark and muddied. Like the way they shot a lot of the shots were, yes, I didn't know where on the road we were, but I could tell where the scene was going. I could tell who was chasing who and who was where and who was ambushing. Like, that part was well constructed. Narratively, that was where the problems are, but the physicality of the shots were well done. I mean, there's, I could think of many Bourne movies that were shakier and harder to tell what am I seeing on the screen than this $400,000 1979 director debut. So I'd say in that regard, you can tell he's got the talent. And, we're talking about, like you were saying, John, the difference for George Miller of knowing where that line is, or where are you pushing into the grotesque or pushing into the, the narrative. And obviously, I mean, it'll be interesting when we talk next week about Mad Max 2, released in America as the Road Warrior. But he obviously gets it, and it clicks. It's not like a flash in the pan, one and done. So yes, I mean, so I keep expecting the police sergeant to like say, I gotta go fight Indy by the one wing in a second because he looked just like.
Oh, you mean
yeah?
Fifi?
He looked just like the guy that boxes him. But those are my positives.
Can you guys explain something to me? In because talking about Fifi, Roger Ward, why were they spying on Mad Max and the guys in the underground?
The only reason that I know this is because I read the Wikipedia page, which is just a testament again to the editing and screenwriting skills of everybody involved. Apparently, it's because Max had talked about wanting to quit before, and so this new car was supposed to be what lured him into remaining a police officer. But what's interesting about that, and Darren, you talked about the bikers everywhere, is one of the cornerstones of this apocalyptic thing that's going on right now is a massive oil shortage, inspired by the oil shortages of the 1970s.
Yeah, I really got the vibe that there was a shortage of oil.
That's exactly my point. If there's a shortage of oil, everybody seems to be really cavalier about driving long distances. Hey, let's go drive out to the countryside and have a picnic. I would argue if gas is $10 a gallon, I don't know. I'm walking more. I'm not
Maybe
driving as many places.
Land yacht.
A makeshift solar sail to save us when the probe comes by. But it's one of those things where I just don't get. I've tried to defend it as saying, well, it's in the midst of the apocalypse. But even that, nobody's tense about it. Like, I imagine that while the world is ending, one or two people will be inclined to say things like, boy, things really suck right now, don't they? There's no indication of that. There's no indication of anybody's habits changing.
There wasn't a single TV commercial saying in these trying times. I mean, come on.
Right? Unprecedented
I would say the mechanic, though, talks about how, he's like, I just keep my head down. Because I think it's more of a societal collapse at this point than a, structural collapse or economic collapse. It's the fact that it's kind of reverting to that Wild West. A gang can, and again, we're having to do so much reading between the lines because even this whole MFP, the main force patrol, is kind of billed at this last remnant of police authority. But how I know that, I couldn't tell you. But it's apparently what's going on, and honestly, we needed some Terminator 2 or Terminator 1 like pre-credit, blocks a paragraph to spell it out for us.
Listen, even Blade Runner has the decency to have a few lines go on screen where it's like, okay, look, here's what's happening. At least give us that much. That can't add that many dollar dues to your budget. Maybe another 5,000. I don't know.
Acting. Was there any good acting in this movie? I'm looking for the positives.
I would argue that yes, there is. I would argue that that Goose.
That would be my answer.
He is. Yeah. Steve Bisley.
I kind of wish Goose and Max actually rode in a car together like that. That's the one thing we're missing is them actually being partners. Like they barely share any screen time, really.
I would argue that you can see that Gibson has a screen presence in this one. I don't think it's a great performance, but if I were an agent, I'd be like, okay, all right, he knows how to carry himself and hit his marks. I get it.
Give him a good script and see what he can do.
I think
that kid has good face. Let's see what he can do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that Hugh Keys Byrne, who plays Toe Cutter.
And Immortan Joe.
Toe Cutter's interesting. Yes, and Immortan Joe. But I think that Toe Cutter, his personality is too big for this. Like it's like he is too big for this movie. It's like he's a character who was whittled down from a more interesting film and put in this one. He sort of functions here the way that Powers Booth does in Tombstone, where as Curly Bill, where it's really, he doesn't have a big part, but when he's on screen, you kind of smile a little bit because he is that type of villain that is just pure evil. And so it's that little giggle that you get. I do think that Toe Cutter is an interesting villain. The problem is, much like a lot of the violence in the movie, he's not presented as a villain, really, but more as an almost an anti-hero type. There's
I don't know if I'd go that
Morton
far.
Joe. I would, because he's so charismatic and he's so big for the movie. I would argue that with Hugh Keays-Byrne, they got somebody who was too good for the role. I know that sounds like a weird sort of thing to say, but he brings so much to it that you're paying more attention to him than the good guy characters.
I don't think that makes him an anti-hero. I think it makes him less of just a villain, and I mean, it definitely puts him in the antagonist category. But
right.
I would never call him an anti-hero.
I agree. I was clumsily trying to say. I think you're right. I was clumsily trying to say he has more of that charisma that you expect from an anti-hero, as opposed to somebody who's you boo and hiss at, like a Morton Joe. He shows up and you're like, boo, hiss, terrible. This guy shows up and you're kind of like, oh, he's kind of funny. Like when he turns around on the guy at the train station and holds his face, and it's this thing where you're like, oh, that's Zilly. That I'm kind of getting a kick out of that. Or when he's riding in the back with the coffin.
I kind of got Buckaroo Banzai kind of vibes, or like Police Academy.
Oh, okay.
Like the guy with
that.
the weird voice in Police Academy.
Oh yeah.
Don't make me do the
remember his
impression
name either.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
I was getting some.
He was also in Spaceballs.
Like when he grabbed his face, I was actually getting some Chigurh vibes from No Country for Old Men, with some of those interactions that he had with people, like when he was like overly
interesting.
Like that's kind of what I got. Now it's not a 1-to-1. Like the two very different kind of charisma levels and temperance and everything like that, but like the disregard for human life, like in the social niceties. That's where, like when he grabs his face, or the other guy, like when he grabs the mechanic's nose, and just like, because none of these people rejected that, like they didn't smack his hand away or like even go back, because they're just absolutely terrified of him. That's where I kind of got No Country for Old Men vibes.
I can see that. I find it so interesting that this is such a beloved film, though. I mean, this is a film that is really loved by a lot of people. Do you think that it's loved by a lot of people of a certain age, and we're just, including me as the resident old man on this show, too young to get it?
I think there are two people. I think there's two kinds of people who like this movie, and it's the people who saw it when they were younger or the exact right age, so older than us, and then there are the people who are film snobs and they're supposed to like it because it started the franchise and because it's underground and indie, and so they lie to themselves and convince themselves that they like it.
So it's sort of like they're liking it ironically?
No, not ironically. They're supposed to like it, and so they tell themselves that they do.
Ooh, oh, that's even worse. But okay, I can see that. Although, of course, on its initial release, it was not warmly embraced by critics, not by a long stretch. So, it was what was it? There was an Australian guy who said that it had all the emotional uplift of Mein Kampf, which I have to say is probably one of the absolutely worst insults I've ever read written about a film, and I lived through the prequels as they were released.
My favorite insult, side note, comes from the Mary Poppins musical. It's where George Banks was, like, his son is reporting on what George Banks said about his wife, where he said that you are of neither use nor ornament. And I'm like, damn!
But it went on and it won 3 Australian Film Institute awards.
Nothing else was going on in 1979, guys. Nothing else.
Musical score.
What?
And sound.
That's like the 3 things we said were like the worst parts of this whole movie.
They are the 3 things that were the worst.
Also,
Is
okay,
it
did you
inverse?
guys?
Is this on the other hemisphere? Is that why? Is that what it is?
I think those awards were given ironically. Don't let me take that one, please.
Well, we look it up, and like no one else was in that category in any of those.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only movie that was released in Australia that year.
I have a question for you guys. Is there a bird in Australia that sounds like a child crying? Because there are so many times when they were outside and you would hear something in the surround sound, and it was a bunch of birds, and then all of a sudden I thought I heard a toddler crying in the background. Did anybody else hear that?
There probably is, but
was it just me ignoring my child in the next room, or what was it?
Occam's
possibly.
razor, that's probably what it was.
Although I will say that I do know that I know that Australia is home, I believe, to 8 of the 10 deadliest species of animal on the face of the planet. So most likely there is a bird that sounds like a toddler crying that lures you out there and then kills you horribly.
That sounds like it.
It's why I will never go to Australia.
If anyone told me that was a real thing, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
I buy it. Yeah, I buy it.
Oh, that monstrosity? Oh, Australia. Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Yes.
There you go. But then conversely, this was included in a list of the best films of all time.
Oh my God, that's really hard.
Gentlemen, we've watched some good movies and some bad movies on this show. Is there any reality in which any of the three of us would put this on the list of the best films of all time? Maybe the best billion movies of all time?
I was going to be generous and say like 50,000. Like if we made a list of top 50,000, 5,000.
It made a lot of money, which is really what it has going for it. But so does Michael Bay. But I wouldn't even
touche.
I wouldn't even count this. Like, imagine if this was the second one or the third one made as a prequel to like The Road Warrior. Even as that, it's not good. Like, I wouldn't be interested in it if it was trying to tell where did Max come from. It's like I'd be like, I really didn't. If that's where he came from, I didn't really care.
And it has a 4K release, and I still can't get 29th Street without subscribing
James
to Stars.
Cameron.
And that just annoys me.
Still hasn't released. I know we're close. The Abyss.
We've been saying that for 10
HD.
years. We've skipped HD and have gone to 4K.
The world.
Maybe he was almost done with HD, and then he's like, well, at this point, I might as well start remastering it for the next one.
Right.
Because we're not even there.
Where's the next 2K button?
Yeah. He was 90% done, and he's like, "Oh wait, 4K is coming out. Throw that all out, guys."
I laugh, but it feels true.
It feels accurate. It truly does feel accurate, doesn't it? Yeah.
All right. Well, the sooner we get done with Mad Max, the sooner we can get to Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior in America.
Yeah, let's not call it Mad Max 2. Let's just call it The Road Warrior.
That is
the
Road
name
Warrior of it, though. It just
it was released as The Road Warrior in the US. That's what counts.
True. Okay. All right. Well, as we're just talking about disappointed Max, and he's not mad yet until the last 10 minutes.
Yes.
Tristan, as a first-time viewer, you've warned us. We felt prepared for this number. How many exploding eyeballs are you giving this film? I'll say it as nicely as possible.
I don't need to summarize how I feel. Like I've gone on for a long time about exactly what is wrong with this film and why it's horrible. I give this a very generous 1.5 because some of the action scenes and the stunts were pretty cool.
So just going by history, the second lowest score you've ever given, at least recently, was 1942 Conquest of Paradise, which we all gave 1s to. Man. And you're saying this is on par with 16 Candles. Interesting.
See, Mad Max at least gives you
explosions,
chase scenes, explosions and chase scenes to distract you. 1492 was just god awful all around and boring.
So bad.
This is true.
All right, John, how disappointed and or mad were you with this film on rewatch? And I know you're excited for next week.
I was very disappointed with this film, as I have been previously. just to add a little more color commentary to it, this is one of those movies where I always hesitated to give my honest opinion about it because so many people loved it that I just stayed really quiet. Didn't you love Mad Max? Yeah.
It's totally one of the franchise. Yeah.
I like
lead to the Road
Warrior
by chance.
Always just then go into I like the Road Warrior more, and then everybody, even if they love Mad Max, it's like, oh yeah, Road Warrior, yeah. I will actually be fairly harsh with this and give it a 1 because I think that the stunts are magnificently staged. I think that the last 5 minutes are vaguely interesting, but I am so. Listen, man, any goodwill is erased by 2 kids being put in danger for no good freaking reason. Done.
I'm not giving this a half star more than you. I'm changing that to 1.
Okay.
Yes. That feels like a victory.
Like, do we need to make 0 an option? Does that need to become?
It's always an option, Darren.
It's always an option. I'm not going to sit here and have somebody say, "Oh, Tristan liked it more than John." I'll be like, "No, I'm not sitting here."
Okay. All right.
With that.
Ooh, I love this power that I have now.
Just on bad movies, only on bad movies. Yeah, no, it's, I didn't absolutely hate it. It was definitely not the best movie in the world. I will probably never, ever watch it again. If I buy a box set, I will probably throw this one away because it doesn't need to be seen. If I'm going to
literally did that with Crystal Skull.
If I did that too,
I literally threw it away.
I did that too with my Crystal Skull. There's like an extra slot. It's like, well, just leave the little bonus DVD there or something.
There you go.
And if I'm going to a marathon, I'm going to show up fashionably late, just in time for the next one. So yeah, let's just make it unanimous. Let's give it 1s across the board. It's we love you, George Miller. We're glad that you made other movies.
Great work, man.
and there's only up from here. It's going to be really an interesting comparison to Fury Road when we finally get there, as through your decades of career.
I'm going to say, yeah, we all gave 1s to Conquest of Paradise. But I will go ahead and say that, Tristan, you might want to go revisit some stuff because you like The Howling more than I did. Because you gave that a 1.5 and I gave it a 1. So, maybe we need to go back and adjust some of these ratings just to.
Well, remember, sure all of our ratings are a moment in time.
That's true. That's very true. It
changes. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it stays at the bottom.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, yes. Thank you for listening to Houselights as we've been talking about Mad Max from 1979. We're going to continue in the House of Miller next week with actually, I see here it's been updated with The Road Warrior from 1981.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.